Have you ever felt like you're doing everything you know to do? You pray, you work hard, you try to honor God, yet it seems like everyone else keeps moving forward while you're standing still. Someone else gets promoted, someone else's business grows, someone else receives the opportunity you've been praying for. Eventually, whether we admit it or not, we begin asking, God, why not me? And maybe you've been told you need more faith. Maybe you've been told to keep praying. Maybe you even wondered if God simply blesses some people more than others. But what if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the issue isn't whether God wants to bless us? What if it's whether we've learned how his kingdom actually works? Because Jesus told a story that completely changed the way I think about increase. And I think it will do the same for you. Here's what I believe. Most Christians don't struggle because they don't love God. They struggle because they're trying to live in God's kingdom with the mindset of the world. We want kingdom results using worldly thinking because the world tells us if it's yours, use it however you want. But what if Jesus teaches something completely different? What if everything you think belongs to you actually belongs to the King? Now let's investigate this. Jesus tells a story in Matthew 25. Where a master prepares to leave a journey. Before leaving, he entrusts his property to 3 servants. Notice something. Jesus doesn't say he gave them their own property. He entrusted them with his property. Then Jesus adds one sentence that most people read right past. He gave to each according to his ability. That raises an interesting question. If he hadn't done anything yet, how did the master already know what they could be trusted with? Maybe this story isn't about money at all. Maybe it's all about trust. Which brings us to the first thing that we must understand, and that kingdom thinking starts with ownership. And here's where the world's thinking and the kingdom thinking collide. The world teaches us ownership. My money, my house, my career, my children, my gifts, my life. But the kingdom teaches stewardship. In Psalm 24, it tells us the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. That means that everything changes. My paycheck isn't mine, it's God's. My marriage isn't mine, it's God's. My children aren't mine. They're entrusted to me by God. The question is no longer, what do I want? The kingdom asks, what does the king want? And that one shift changes how we think. But it creates another question. If everything belongs to the king, what is he looking for in his stewards? Which brings us to another important factor, is that is the kingdom rewards faithfulness, not our desires. You see, most of us, we ask God for more and more opportunities, more ways to influence, more money, more responsibility. But Jesus says something fascinating. The master entrusted resources according to ability. So that takes out desire, that takes out need, that takes out comparison. Think about that. The kingdom is not asking us, what do you want? It's asking, what have you done with what you've already been entrusted with? And kingdom thinking understands that increase begins with faithfulness. Worldly thinking believes increase comes first. That's why so many of us stay frustrated. We're waiting for more before becoming fruitful. When the kingdom is saying, be fruitful, be faithful first. Which brings us to another question. If faithfulness is the key, why did one servant fail? It was ultimately because fear is what produces worldly thinking. And the third servant, when he finally spoke, he says, I was afraid. And at first it sounds like fear is the problem, but fear is only the symptom. Because listen to what he says next. I knew you were a hard man. His stewardship reflected his view of the master. Now think about it. If we believe that God is harsh, we'll live in fear. If we believe everything depends on me, we'll hold on tightly to everything. And if I don't trust the king's character, I'll never manage his resources well. Because ultimately, this issue isn't about money. This issue is truly about relationship, which continues as we investigate, continues to beg more questions. So how does this affect the way we live every day? Because kingdom thinking changes how we live. Because this parable is not about finances. It's about life. And if your time belongs to God, you'll spend it differently. If your marriage belongs to God, you'll lead differently. And if your children belong to God, you'll parent differently. If our gifts belong to God, we'll use them differently. Because kingdom thinking always produces kingdom living. Because what you believe will determine how you behave. So let me ask a question. What area of your life are you still treating like an owner instead of a steward? Is it in your money, your marriage, your children, your time, your health, your calling? Maybe you've been praying to God to give you more while he's inviting you to think differently. Because before God changes what's in your hands, he often wants to change what's in your mind. In this video, I want us to understand that the kingdom is totally different than the world standards. That we cannot be self-reliant. And when the rubber meets the road, as the saying goes, we can't be looking to rely on our own self because we never own anything anyway. Psalm 24 told us that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. But we have a hard time trying to understand what a kingdom is. And the majority of the problem is truly because we live in a democracy. So we don't understand kingdom thinking. That is a very hard concept for us to get. Because all we know is democracy. All our world tells us is ownership and independence. But that's not what the king is after. The king is telling us to rely on him, trust in him. You know, when we hear about kingdoms, you know what I'm saying, from back in the day, and some of them still exist. Well, for instance, Great Britain, whenever they were under a kingdom, every day they had to get up and worship the king. They had to get up and sing a song every day to the king to acknowledge him. Is that what you're doing? Or do you get up every day and acknowledge yourself? Do you wake up every day giving yourself pressure about all the things you need to achieve instead of giving it to the king, the one that you say you have entrusted your life to? Because we need to get this. We need to understand what kingdom management is all about. And it's not God giving more people stuff because they're more favored, even though we know favor exists. But the favor exists because God trusts them. They have shown themselves trustworthy. Because in the book of Luke, it tells us that even when we were able to handle the least of these things, then more will be added on to us. Are you able to handle what you already have? Because Jesus never wanted this story to simply change how we handle money. He wanted it to change how we think about everything. Because the world system constantly tells us, build your own kingdom. But Jesus told us in 6:33, Matthew, seek first the kingdom. The world system is constantly saying it's yours, while the kingdom says it belongs to the king. The kingdom asks, what has God entrusted to us, while the world says, what can I get? Because one day we'll stand before the king, not as owners, but as stewards of things he's given us. And I don't believe the question would be, how much do you have? I believe it would be, what did you do with what I entrusted you with? That's why the greatest words we'll ever hear are not, well done, successful servant, or well done, wealthy servant, but well done, good and faithful servant. Because God's kingdom isn't built on ownership. It's built on faithful stewardship. Hope this video blessed you. I hope it gave you a new understanding of how the kingdom management principle works. And how we need to understand is, as long as we think about us as being the owners, then we'll never be able to truly steward what we have. Because God is not in the business of destroying his people. He doesn't want to give you things where now it'll overload you. And when it overloads you, it'll make you a bad representative of his kingdom. We already have enough of that through behaviors. So we don't need that through resources. Always acknowledge God as your source. Because a resource comes from the source. Resource. I hope this video blessed you. If it did, make sure that you subscribe to the Kingdom Blueprint channel, where we on this channel believe that the Bible is more than just a good thing to say, but a godly thing to do. Be blessed, friends.